All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am very excited to have as my guest today, Robert Gray. Rob, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. Great. So a highly regarded art therapy lecturer from Germany, Robert Gray has degrees in art therapy, psychology, and theology. As a psychologist, he is able to present art therapy practices in an evidence-based context, which further facilitates a well-founded and comprehensible training program. He leads the field of art therapy with his unique integration of psychological techniques and spiritual practices. Rob is also the author of the book Art Therapy and Psychology. It's hands-on and rich with supportive study tools and includes numerous case studies to which the reader can relate. The book is essential reading for art therapists in training and in practice, psychologists and mental health professionals looking to establish or grow their expertise. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
So good to be here.
Awesome. So thank you for being here. Before we go on, Rob, share with the listeners where you're from originally and where you are now.
I'm originally from Germany, and I studied art therapy in Germany and also theology. And then I fallen in love with an Australian girl and I moved to Australia. Wow. And I had to find a path in Australia, and art therapy 20 years ago was not known in Australia. So I had to study psychology as well, just to fit into the place where I wanted to be with that woman I loved. So I studied a lot, and people in Australia got really curious about art therapy because psychology is quite established, of course, and social work and counseling. And so I started teaching art therapy to my colleagues for free.
Wow. And
then my manager said, "No, you can't do that at work time." So I started my college.
Awesome.
And now that's what I mainly do. I teach, and I work mainly with trauma, really.
Okay.
Because
stop there. We will get to that.
Good.
All right. So I am interested in how you got here in the first place.
Yeah.
Share that with us. Go.
How do I got here to what?
Well, how this interest in art therapy, this interest in, how did that blossom for you within you? What was that path like?
Yeah, well, I worked when I was a 15-year-old. I was involved in the parish youth in the church, and we had a lot of kids who got abused and neglected, and we did respite care for them. We took them away from their homes for 3 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I was asked to join in and help with the kids and do activities with the kids. My mom was a Freudian analyst, and she kind of said, "Go ahead with it, and I give you something to read." So she gave me a book from Jung and other books that might help me to understand those kids and to be supportive to them.
So you were 15.
15,
how old were
started.
These kids?
The kids were from primary school age, mainly.
What's that?
Some secondary school age.
How old is that?
5 years old, 6 years old.
Okay.
8 years old, and they were just taken away from their parents to give them a break.
Sure.
And so that's how I got into the interest in, being with people, I guess. And then I studied theology myself to work with youth and kids. And then I realized soon that pastoral counseling doesn't go deep enough for my wanting. Mm-hmm. Coming from an analytical background with my mother, I wanted more. So I studied art therapy.
Let me interrupt you for a second here. Pause you for a second. So when you started doing this, so it sounds like from an early age you were introduced to religion and spirituality.
Yes.
Okay.
Not to my parents. I lived in South America in the slums when I was 11 without my parents. And there was a religious family. And I don't know, I felt there's family and they're religious. There must be something good about this.
Uh-huh. Wow. So when you started working with these kids and you yourself were young, what was that like for you? I mean, did you feel or think, wow, I can do this, or what?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting, because I was very confident as a young man or a young teenager. I thought, I can do this. I can help them. And then at the end of the respite care, we often met with the parents and the kids.
Wow.
And the parents asked me questions. What do I do with her or with him? I have all these issues. So I gave them advice.
What did you say?
I told them, well, you might have to take more time with them, go and play with them outside, listen to their stories. They have a lot to tell and to share. And I was so confident in my head that I knew the answers.
But those sound like really, really good answers.
Well, they kind of intuitively were, but as I grew older, I started to realize how little I actually really know.
Sure.
Especially once I got my own kids.
Yeah. Well, listening is I don't think is ever a bad answer, So wow. So that's so interesting, right? I mean, from an early age, there was something going on with you. Okay. So you had that experience. How does art therapy come into play here?
Art therapy was for me something I've chosen because I wanted to, not just to chat, I wanted to go deeper, find out what's really happening and how can we change that for you? Mm-hmm. Because I realized also quite early through the readings of my mom, through the books she gave me, that just giving people advice is not going to change them. Mm-hmm. It's nice, it's well meant, but telling people stop drinking or stop hurting your wife, it's not going to do it. Right. Something needs to shift from a deeper place. And that's how I got into art therapy. And that's how I became an art therapy lecturer, that passion to make a difference to people and not just people coming to you in counseling and you just tell them what you think.
Now, what was your understanding of art therapy? In other words, you said you wanted to go deeper and make more of a kind of tectonic shift in a sense.
Yes.
What did you understand art therapy to be, and how did you feel that would make that shift for people?
I guess when I was a young man, I didn't understand a lot about it. I just had a gut feeling that it felt good. Mm-hmm. I also studied a little bit at the art academy, so I was interested in art. I was interested in counseling, so art therapy felt natural. Now, of course, as a lecturer, I have much more understanding what actually happens with the art and how that makes a difference for trauma work. But at those days, it just felt good. Mm-hmm. It felt right.
Let's get into this here. And I want to be mindful of your study and interest in theology. When, in relation to what we're talking about now with your learning of art therapy, where was that for you? The spirituality.
I guess my parents got divorced when I was 6 years old. So I ended up with my mom alone. I was in a boarding school for a year, and then I was alone with my mom, and I saw my dad every second weekend. So there was a real sense of losing family and connection. Mm. So that losing connection is a topic until today for me, how to get connection with people, a real connection and not just a superficial one. And when I was with this family in the slums in South America, in Uruguay, they had connection. And the connection was celebrated through a religious expression. They talked to God. They prayed before having dinner together. They prayed before they went to bed, and they shared that with each other. And I felt, this is really nice. This is family.
Why were you there?
My mom decided she wanted to move to South America, where she's originally from. She was born there, and she didn't like the Germans. She thought they were too harsh and too serious and not Mediterranean enough, I suppose. There's nothing wrong with the Germans, but not like Americans sometimes think. They're very kind people. But for my mom, she felt that emotional expression that was missing for her, people sharing their feelings openly. So she wanted to go to South America, and she was still going through this divorce experience. It was still stressful for her at home. So she sent me ahead alone to a family she trusted.
Oh.
And they lived next to a slum. They were a wealthy family, but they lived next to a slum. So all my friends lived in a slum.
Wow.
And that's why I was there. But I was there a year alone without my parents. So there was also trauma that I wasn't aware of, but I was constantly thinking, when are they coming? What's happening?
Wow, such an interesting background and such an interesting upbringing. You mentioned how, so obviously a lot of therapists and survivors are listening to this podcast, and we've all heard of art therapy. How do you define it? What is it to you?
What is it to me? That's a good answer. It's a way to get easily or fast to a very deep place where I am not running the show, but I'm only facilitating it, and somebody else goes to that deep place and has an insight and awareness of, now I know why I'm in this relationship. This is toxic. This is not good. I'm depending on someone. I don't want to depend any longer. I'm sick of depending. And they tell me that, and I'm just sitting back and thinking, wow, great. So through art therapy, I'm doing something very similar what my mom used to do with psychoanalysis. But what I really love about art therapy is that it's visual. So the person expresses something visual, and I can watch it, and I can see what they're doing, and then I can see what they're saying about the artwork. So I can really follow much easier than just by talking and suggesting and interpreting. I don't like that. I don't like the whole idea of me being the expert who knows something, because the truth is, as I got older, when I was a young man, I believed I knew a lot. And as I got older, I started to realize I don't know anything. And probably the best thing you can do is ask my wife, and she will confirm that Rob has no clue.
So this sounds amazing to me. Can you give us a concrete example of what this would look like?
Yes. So I guess when you have a traumatic experience, I try to make it really short.
Can you be specific about a client you've worked with? Obviously, maintaining confidentiality, but I want to get more specific.
Okay, I have many clients who had experience of assault or violence, and just rave. Yeah, okay. They come to you totally overwhelmed. Somebody sent them to you normally because they have seen other clinicians before. And nothing happened, nothing changed. The clinician was always well-meaning and told them what to do, what to think, to leave the guy or whatever. And then they end up in art therapy because somebody told them, try that. And then I say, okay, how about you, what's going on first? Just the general questions that, I'm this relationship. I'm very fearful. I'm walking on eggs. And I don't know what to do, but I also don't really want to leave because I know he loves me. Something like that. And that's a lot of people say that, but I have one person in my mind, a recent client, that's what she would have said. Or that still says, he loves me. He just sometimes does things that are not right. Can you express it in an image that, or I might make a self box, like a shoe box, where she creates on the inside of the shoebox how she really feels, and on the outside of the shoebox how she protects herself against him when he is one of his moods.
So you would invite her to do this.
Yes, create, like I have a shoebox in the room without the shoes.
Okay.
And give her art materials. And on the inside, she creates herself, how she really feels about herself deep inside.
Wow.
And on the outside of the shoebox, show how you protect yourself against when he's drinking and he becomes violent and aggressive. What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Just want to see it. So really important part of art therapy is that we don't give too much guidance. We just pick up what they say and ask them to express it.
Okay. So this person, what did this person do? What did they do to create the self box?
And then they ran out of time. They took it home and they kept working at home with that box. And they took materials from the environment and, shells and rocks and pebbles and beautiful things. And on the outside, they started gluing things on it and made collage. It could be abstract. It could be figurative. It's very playful. So this is what we call art as therapy. So the doing of the art can be therapeutic. There is something happening, and this is really exciting for an art therapist, that when we do talking therapy, what most therapists do around the world, it's a very cognitive process. It requires the language part of the brain, as you're aware. Whereas when you experience something traumatic, the language part of the brain is not active. So we are more in this limbic middle part of the brain active, where we digest the trauma or try to deal with it as we can. And that part is also responsible for art and expression and sensory information. It's a very emotional part of the brain as well. So when people do art, they connect intrinsically with their trauma experience without thinking about it, without talking about it. It's just a natural place to express your pain in a creative way.
So let me ask you something. So I love this idea of this self box. So how might an understanding or realization unfold for this particular client in the creation of, or would this even happen in the creation of this self box?
That's a very good question, because most art therapists don't even know there's more to art therapy. So what most art therapy know is the doing of the art does something amazing. First of all, it's safer. To talk, it's actually really difficult. It's easier to just express because it's the same part of the brain. As you do it, the traumatic experience often is not accessible. Like when you have a real trauma experience, you don't know what to talk. You can't talk about it. It's like emotionally, it's kind of locked away, that experience in your brain somewhere. We call it, it's intrinsic. It's not available for discussion. But as you do the artwork, it becomes unlocked to a degree. It becomes extrinsic. So it means you can actually look at your artwork as you sit at home at your self box and start, oh, I didn't expect that. How does that look like? And she looks at the inside. Wow, it's quite messy there. Wow. So something starts to unlock and starts to shift that is visible. You can see it and you can even talk about it. So that's the art as therapy still. And a lot of art therapists do that really well. And I think this is what is needed in trauma work, the kind of work. But there's another part of art therapy that I can talk next about, if you like.
Yeah, keep going.
So the next part needs the art therapist. So now she comes back to our session with her self box. She puts it on the ground, on a table. And I ask her, how have you been? About the process. It was good. It was fun playing with the materials. I enjoyed it. I thought about my trauma, but at times I forgot about it. And I just enjoyed playing with the box and see what I can put inside, what I put outside. And then now comes the art in therapy, basically meaning you are now in therapy with an art therapist and we're going deeper. And this is often when I find people having the aha moment or an insight and real awareness of what's going on. So I ask them not what they think about the self box and why they have done it the way they've done it. That's what most clinicians do. I ask them, what do you see? So it's all about, I had in my mind this, but now I see that.
Okay, so let me just pause you here for a second. So when you're inviting this person to create the self box, you said, we're not giving much direction. Are you asking them to do this with their trauma in mind, or just within the context of their relationship?
I ask them to do it with their trauma in mind.
Okay.
I ask them to draw inside or create inside how they feel about themselves in life. And on the outside, how they can protect themselves against the partner or husband.
Okay.
So it's really clear, but as they do the artwork, it's fluid. They go in and out, and they might totally forget about the whole task and just have a go at that beautiful box. And that's okay, because when you work with the unconsciousness, you become very aware that the unconsciousness always projects if it can. So when we're doing something artistic, the unconscious experience of being hurt in a relationship and being controlled by someone else, it comes up and it goes into the art object. So regardless if you're thinking about it or not, it makes actually no difference in my experience. It is still in the art object, the trauma experience always is.
Now, you made a distinction and said, well, there's that's the first part. The second part is, what the client sees. Talk more about that.
So that's the art in therapy. I'm asking the client not to interpret her own artwork. People always like to interpret it because we're so used to think and analyze and what that means. Yes. No, don't do that. Just what do you see? Just when you're looking at it now, what comes to your mind? And then she says, oh, I forgot the lid. Oh, I just was so busy with doing the box and I did the sides, but I forgot to do the lid and I didn't bring the lid. It's all open. So this is the first experience that this particular client had. You get lots of experiences over the years. And I said, okay. So again, really important, the art therapist is not the expert. I don't know what it means. I ask her, what does it look like without a lid? I said, well, it's open. So when it's open, what do you see? Well, I see everything. And how does it feel seeing everything? A bit scary. A bit vulnerable. Right. Is that how you feel in your relationship with your partner? Scared and vulnerable.
Wow.
And the moment you say that, tears come out. And I said, that's exactly what I feel. I feel so vulnerable. I just want to run all the time. And I was not even aware how strong that feeling was until now I see that without the lid. I have absolutely no protection, Rob. And she cried and cried.
Oh my God. So this distinction between asking a client, what do you see, as opposed to what does it mean? Talk to us more about that.
When we go into what it means, the easiest way to explain it is if you imagine an iceberg. People say the Freudian iceberg kind of metaphor. He actually didn't talk about the iceberg, but it doesn't really matter. There's an iceberg and you see only the tip. So we're only functioning on the tip level. That's our consciousness up there. So when I'm asking the client, what do you think about it? Why did you not bring a lid along? She's going to the tip of the iceberg and thinking about it. Well, it probably wasn't nice enough, Rob. Or it was lying somewhere in the room and I didn't see it when I picked up the box. And so she comes up with explanations what we do to understand our life. And it's always very surface level. It doesn't go deep to emotional parts of the unconsciousness. To go to the unconsciousness, I need to move away from interpreting, analyzing, and thinking to what do you see? Why to see? Because, as I mentioned earlier, the unconsciousness always projects into an art object. it's like a dream. You have a dream. There's all these unconsciousness might go into this dream experience or the story of the dream. Not always, but it can really go into it.
Mm-hmm.
It has an easy way to get into your dreams. It has an easy way to get into your artwork. Always. Every artwork you do, unless somebody's holding your hand, the moment you have a choice, your unconsciousness goes into it.
Wow.
And if you've been traumatized, it will be in it. It will be visible. So you can actually see it. That's why I'm saying to the client, what you see, it stands out to them. It calls to them.
And
it
this has
to
nothing
them.
to do with what you see.
No, nothing with Rob Gray.
Which is really interesting. Wow.
I have no clue. Since I've written my book, I get so many emails, often from America, from the States. And people say, oh, Rob, I got this client who got sexually abused. And this is her picture. Can you show me something what it means? And I now have a template of answering those emails. I have no idea. I would need to see the client. I need to talk to her. Basically, what I need is to ask her, what do you see?
Right.
Tell me what is there that stands out. What do you see? What does it look like? How does it feel what you're seeing? And that's how the unconscious suddenly like, whoa, comes up and people go into tears and now I know. And I said to her, tell me, what do you know? Because I don't know. And then she tells me her story. So it very much in that way of working, the art therapist is actually not the expert. Of course, we are experts, but with the clients, we're just on a journey with them where they are understanding, they're getting an insight, and they can change in their own right. We're not manipulating them, pushing them, do that, think in that way. Those feelings are not useful, or those thoughts are not useful. I don't need to do that. But it all gets interesting. Once the unconscious becomes conscious, and she says to me, I feel I need more protection. Now I can do cognitive behavior therapy. I can say, so what do you think you might need to do about that? So when the unconscious becomes conscious and she has an awareness, I can go to other modalities of checking on behavior, on thoughts, on emotions. And that naturally leads me again to art therapy. So she might say, I need to create a buffer, Rob. That's what she did say. I need a buffer. I need some space between me and him so I can protect myself.
So obviously you're allowing this energy to come from the client, right?
Yes.
You're not imposing your own ideas and ideals. Rob, what makes you so good at this?
Probably it's my own journey of believing I knew a lot. I also studied theology for 10 years. I learned about Trinity. Do you know Trinity? God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. I read 2 books about that. Yeah. And I kind of thought, whoa, I know Trinity. No, actually, I didn't. When I was in a church youth, I thought I knew Trinity exactly what it meant. I could explain to everybody what it meant. After reading 2 books for my theology exams, I realized this is all just made up by some dudes in the 3rd century. So like, moment, I'm believing in something that just somebody made up. Is that the truth? So I started now doubting my own knowledge at that stage when I was, my late middle 20s. And that continued that journey, having my own children and, freaking out about how difficult some of those experiences were for me. And I had no answers. And my wife said to me, come on, you're the expert. You're working with children for 20 years. You should know what to do with them. And I said, well, if I wouldn't be an expert, I would go to an expert. But I know what they're going to tell me. So you know what I did? I got myself a book about Buddhism for mothers. And that helped me most.
That's funny.
So basically, I had to work on myself. I needed to learn to be patient, to let go of judgment, to let go of thinking you know anything, just to be in the moment, accept what is, be aware that things go. And so when I work now with clients, I come very much from that mindset of allowing them to work out their stuff because life is so complex. How can I be so arrogant and believe I know anything that is even valuable for a client if I don't even know how to manage my own life? that's where that experience grew more and more over the years. And art therapy is just a beautiful way of working. If you do it well, that puts the client in charge and they get their awareness and insights, and it's very powerful. And so you're sitting back and think, wow, this is so good, but I'm not doing it.
Right. Right. Now, I think a lot of times when people hear the term art therapy, their thought is, well, I'm not an artist, or do I need to know how to draw? You mentioned one example, I'm sure of many, just the self box.
Yeah.
Talk about some other ways you might work with someone besides using the self box.
First of all, the title or the name art therapy is a mistake. We all know that around the world, because art therapy is actually not about art. Art therapy is about the expression from within, from a deeper place. You express yourself in a creative way. Everybody can do that. We can all express ourselves. We can throw some mud against the wall. We can make mess with clay. We can play with finger paints, body paints. We can do things in a funny, creative way. We can make music. We can draw. We can write. We can act something out. We can be very playful in many ways. Of course, as adults, we have forgotten how to do that. Mm-hmm. And so an art therapist is very skillful in prompting you, in giving you incentives to get into it, to get your fingers dirty or messy. Unless you don't like mess, you get markers or pencils. So we find many ways to get you interested into that. And often I might start with picture cards, what is very rational and more distancing. You put some little picture cards on the floor and you ask the client, can you choose one of the cards? And they're very diverse, a huge range of different cards. And they pick one up and they look at the card and say, oh, what do you see? Seeing, yeah? Mm-hmm. What do you see? I said, oh, I see a woman from the back looking over the ocean. How does it feel? Don't know. She looks a bit lonely. What's happening for you right now? Do you feel a bit lonely? Oh, I didn't think about myself.
Right.
Do you feel a bit lonely? Actually, I do. I feel very lonely that nobody understands who I really am.
Right.
And she might get a bit emotional about that. And the moment she gets that experience, she realizes, whoa, this is deep. This is my topic. The loneliness is my topic. How did we find that so quickly? This is wow. And then we might do something else. And you play along that.
Wow. That's awesome, man. So let me just remind everyone that I'm speaking with Robert Gray. The name of the book is Art Therapy and Psychology. So Robert,
just call me Rob.
Rob, how do you work with clients now? Is everything in person? Is it virtual? Do you have courses with teaching therapists? What do you do?
Yeah, well, I started to teach art therapy in Australia about 20 years ago because there was this interest in art therapy. And I kept seeing clients parallel as well. And about 12 years ago, I had a student from Perth, it's on the other side of Australia. And she said, Rob, I can't come to you face-to-face. It's too expensive to fly every weekend to Newcastle, which is on the other side of Australia. Is there a way you can make this online for me? And I'm one of those people, when I get a challenge, I embrace it. It's kind of the universe is saying to me, do that. I don't know why, I just do it. So I created an online course just for her. And it was so successful. She loved it so much that I got a website where I put it on and started offering online courses. Before COVID hit, I've been already teaching in about nearly 40 different countries, art therapy. So people from all the different countries around the world found my website. I was actually at that time, I believe, I don't know if it's true, the only person who was teaching art therapy at a professional level, not just an introduction, but actually really a whole course, art therapy. Mm-hmm. So around the whole world, that didn't exist. Mm-hmm. Art therapy was a face-to-face thing. But I just, because of that need, I designed it the way I believed it would work. And I've been in about 40 countries before COVID hit. Now, of course, with COVID, now everybody's online. All my colleagues said, you can't do that online. All doing it online now.
Oh my gosh.
It was really funny in that way. But my clients, I see also around the world as well. People often who can't see an art therapist, who are remote somewhere, they would see me through Zoom.
Wow. So your website is arttherapycourses.com.au.
That's right.
Okay. We'll have that linked up at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Rob, you are awesome. You're seriously, you're so inspiring. And,
you're so kind.
well, it's the truth. And the way you articulated what you do and how you do, I'm ready to sign up. It just sounds like I need this. It sounds so awesome. And I'm sure people listening to this are going to be like, wow, I want to do this. I want to help my clients with this. Look, I'd love to have you back at a later time, different time, and we can talk more specifically about other ways you work and other client examples. But what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Through my website.
Okay.
So just arttherapycourses.com.au.
Okay.
And you find somewhere, contact us. And then I get an email on my desk. And I would check my emails about 100 times a day. So I would definitely see it.
Okay. Awesome.
When I don't have a client, I check my emails. That's what I do.
Okay.
Or I do some research.
It was an honor talking to you, man. You're so inspiring. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Take care.